everyone. This is Paula Bell, aka the BA Martial Artist, coming to you today for the first ever virtual Serendipity Conference. I'm excited to be here, but we're going to jump right in because we only have a short amount of time to be together. So what I want you to do is I want everybody to grab your phone. Go ahead and grab your phone, and I want you to do a quick poll with me. So with the poll, I need you to go to menti.com. Again, that is menti.com. You can see it on the screen. And when you go to menti.com, I want you to use code 64204592 and answer this question. Have you ever felt singled out, overlooked, or ignored due to unchangeable characteristics such as your gender, your race, etc.? So go ahead, go to menti.com, use the code at the top here of the screen, 64204592, and answer that question for me. Hopefully I'll start to see some results. Yes, I'm seeing some coming in. All right, all right. Thank you for participating. I'm going to keep this up for another few seconds and let everybody participate. Thank you, thank you. Numbers are rising. Got 17, 18, up to 21. Keep it going, keep it going. It appears that the yeses are pretty much winning out of this. I'm going to go for another 10 seconds. If you haven't had a chance, go to menti.com, use that code, and take part in this question. All right, all right. And they're still coming in. All right, another 10 seconds, giving you a little bit more time. And then we're going to jump right into the rest of the conversation. Awesome, awesome. Thank you for being a part of that and taking part of doing that really quick for me. And that is going to lead into what we're going to talk about today, which is this thing called micro-inequities. So a micro-inequity is a theory in which individuals are either singled out, overlooked, ignored, or otherwise discounted based on an unchangeable characteristic, just like we talked about, a race or a gender. And these micro-inequities can fall within broader categories of micro-messaging, where you have real small messaging, but it can have a big impact. So micro-inequities tend to be subtle. Sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it or it has happened to you. It could be verbal or nonverbal, and we'll go over an example of what I mean by that. It could be generated by your unconscious mind. Again, you're not really realizing that you're doing it. It's not intentional. It's something that you don't even recognize that you've done. It could be small messages of prejudices that you have that you may not even realize that you have, because all of us have some sort of bias. And we're going to go through that a little bit too. And it's often subconscious. So it's these little small things. Now, before we go further, I want to go over some examples and some statistics of what this thing or what these things of micro-inequities are. So Gallup did a poll. And Gallup found that 24.7 million US workers, this is a US-based poll, or 19% of our workforce are actively disengaged. And then another 56% of workers were not engaged at all. And then there was only about 25% of the workers that were actively engaged. So the result is we have about 75% of our workers that are not fully engaged. Now, for the actively disengaged employees or workers, the cost to the economy because of this disengagement to the US is anywhere between 292 to 355 billion. Imagine that. Look at how much money that is costing, that disengagement. And what they found was a notable cause of the disengagement was diversity-related incidents of disrespect. So what are some examples of this thing that I talk about when I talk about micro-inequity? Well, an example is you can ask someone where they are from based on their appearance. Now, you might not think that is impactful, but it can very much well be, because somebody might think because the way I look different, that I must be different, or I don't fit in, or I'm not the norm. So that can cause a certain reaction or behavior. Constantly being interrupted while you are talking. I've experienced this quite a bit on conference calls where somebody's trying to make a point and somebody comes right in over them and starts talking. And that person who was initially talking might now feel as what I have to say isn't important. Nobody wants to listen to me. What I have to say adds no value. So now they silence that voice that we so much need. Or you might get a statement, and this has happened to me: you are so articulate. You speak really well. I've had this happen to me. As many of you know, you can see me. I am a person of color, where I've been the only person of color, and I've walked into a room, and the only time people have ever really engaged with me is on the phone. And they had this picture of who I was. And then I walk in the room and I say something profound, or we have a conversation. They're like, you are so articulate. And I'm here feeling, well, shouldn't I be articulate? I'm a professional, I'm a business person. But that has an impact on me, on how people view me. Or take this: someone walks into your office, or you walk into your boss's office, better yet, and your boss was working on an email. Instead of your boss or your manager looking up to acknowledge you, they continue to work on their email. You're not really feeling heard there. There's no eye contact. There's no shift in body language. So you might feel as though they're not really listening to what I have to say. They really don't care about what I have to say. And so then you may not say exactly what you want to say that could mitigate risks, that could save the company money, that could make the company money. But because you feel like you're not getting that engagement, you feel you're not being heard. It's those little small things that have a huge impact. And that is what a micro inequity is. The key to the big is the small. So when you have these big impacts, it's probably been small little things that have led up to it. And that's why understanding micro inequities is so important, especially in your professional career and in your personal life, because you may not realize the impact and the behaviors you might be demonstrating that could be impacting somebody else on a bigger level. Implicit association test is. Let's start back there. And this is a nonprofit organization where we have some international collaboration between researchers who were interested in thoughts and feelings outside of conscious awareness and bias. The goal of the organization was to educate the public about hidden biases and to provide a virtual laboratory for collecting data on the internet. Now, Project Implicit was founded in 1998 by three scientists: Tony Greenwald, Mazram Banaji, and Brian Nozick. And with this, they measured attitudes and beliefs that people may be unwilling or unable to report. Because remember, a lot of the micro inequities are unintentional, right? They're subtle. You may not even realize you're doing it. So sometimes you may not even be aware of the micro inequity that you are demonstrating. So, for example, you may believe that women and men should be equally associated with science, right? But your automatic association could actually show that you associate men with science more than you associate women with science. So you're believing one thing in your mind, but your actions and how you interact in your behaviors are showing another thing. That's why these micro inequities, sometimes you have to acknowledge when somebody might give you feedback that you're portraying or demonstrating a certain trait, because you may not even be aware of it. You have to be open to that feedback. So let's go a little bit further on bias, because I mentioned the word bias and I didn't go really deep into it, but there are many different biases that you can have. As you can see on this screen, there are quite a few. I'm just going to highlight a couple that are probably common and that some of you might be able to resonate with. So one is affinity. You might prefer someone that reminds you of you. So with that said, if you're a manager who's hiring people, do you tend to hire for diversity and manage to assimilation? Or do you tend to hire for diversity and really want that diversity? Or are you the type of person who I don't want to hire anybody that's different than me. I only want to hire people that are like me, because then I know that they think like me and I'll get along with them and we won't have any conflict or any challenges, right? Is that sort of affinity where you don't actually want to go outside of that diversity that people bring to the table? Or maybe you might have a confirmation bias down here, where you favor individuals that conform to the beliefs that you hold more than anything else. Or maybe you might have a gender bias, where you judge someone negatively based on their gender. Or yet even you might have a name bias, where you might look at a name, and just because somebody has a certain name, you might have a negative bias towards them. Or you might perceive they're from a certain location or a certain culture. All of us have bias, and all of us have bias that creep up at different parts in our life. The most important thing is that you identify it, you acknowledge it, and then you make sure you change those behaviors. Because I truly believe that most of us want to treat people the way we want to be treated. So how do you overcome some of the micro inequities? Some of it I just mentioned just a brief moment ago, but one thing is you can understand the different types of biases that exist. So I showed you some of them. I didn't go into all of them, and I'm quite sure there's probably more than what I have on that screen, but you definitely want to understand what the different types of biases are. Then you want to understand the biases you have, whether conscious and unconscious, and where those biases come from. And to get even deeper, there's another assessment called the Intercultural Development Inventory, which is an intercultural competency assessment that helps you understand your own culture and others' culture, but at a deeper level. You don't stay surface. It's more than just the music you listen to, the art you like, the literature you have. It's more understanding beliefs, behaviors, getting more into that below the surface areas, and really trying to understand maybe how your childhood, your experiences, your scenarios in life that you went through have impacted how you view not only your own culture, but the culture of others. And we all have to admit, we're in a very virtual world. We're dealing with people all over the globe, different cultures, different beliefs, different values, different behaviors. And in order for us to be as effective as we can, we've got to build those relationships. We have to understand how to communicate and collaborate. So it's really important that you have a strong foundation of understanding who you are, and then understanding how you interact with others and what biases you might have, and how do you get rid of those biases. You have to get out of your comfort zone and place yourself in situations where you are uncomfortable so that you can grow and learn to eradicate the biases that you might have. So you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You also have to replace negative mental images of certain target groups or individuals with positive mental images. Again, understand why you even have those negative mental images, and then how can you change it to something more positive so that you're treating that individual or that target group as you would want to be treated. And then you want to replace tolerant behaviors with acceptance and appreciative behaviors. We want to shift from the micro inequities to micro affirmations. You don't just want to tolerate people, right? You really want to accept, you want to embrace, you want to appreciate. That's the beauty of diversity, equity, and inclusion, appreciating those. And a lot of people get the diversity piece where we all have difference. The inclusion piece is the hard piece. How do we make people feel included? And the IDI actually is the bridge on how you do that, how you get from just embracing difference to appreciating the difference. So there's a quote that I like, that I would like to leave you with as we are coming close to a close, and it's by Jerry Sternin. And the quote is, "It's easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than think your way into a new way of acting." We can all day long justify why we act a certain way. We can come up with a justification, and we can even find people who can help us come up with a justification on behaving the way we do. But the real golden nugget is when you can change the way you think so that you actually behave and act in a new way. Let's get rid of these micro inequities and stop making people feel small or inferior, but making people feel included in a part of the world that we all live in. So with that, I just want to talk a little bit more about the Intercultural Development Inventory. I am an actual licensed administrator for this assessment. I love this assessment because even as much as I am in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I do a lot with it, I still have some growth to do in that area too. I'm not exactly where I want to be, and I'm continually growing. But this is a great assessment to at least get you grounded, to at least help you understand where you are today, to understand where you can be to get to that point of acceptance and appreciation. So this includes an online assessment. You get a personalized report, you get a 60-minute debriefing session from me, and you get 2 30-minute follow-ups off that development planner, intercultural development plan, they call it an IDP, that we will follow up on to go through this journey together. Again, I'm constantly learning too, and I learn a ton as I do these with other people, and I've had great success with them so far. This is usually a 267 value. Because of the conference today, I'm doing it for 147. If you are interested, this is not any pressure. You don't have to do this. It's just something I wanted to put out here just in case you do want to go a little bit deeper in diversity, equity, and inclusion. You may not exactly know how, but you know you want to do something different. If you're interested, just contact me. My contact info is below at contact@paulaabell.com. I'll also be in the networking lounge throughout the day in between meetings. So if you want to connect there, we can connect there as well. And then here's also just my contact information if you want to stay connected. I'm connected with many of you on LinkedIn, Facebook, other platforms. I love staying connected and learning and supporting you in whatever you're doing as well. But I hope that you got from this presentation that take a little bit of a step back and think about when you might have actually done some micro inequities to other people, or you are currently doing them today, and how you can step back and make sure that those little small impacts don't leave a large negative impression on someone else. So with that, have a great rest of the conference. Thank you, Adrian and Vince, for putting this wonderful event on and inviting me to be a part of it. And let's definitely stay connected outside.